إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, in the past several weeks we've been talking about crucial ingredients to building a successful community. The first of those ingredients was having ilm, or knowledge. Having the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the knowledge of Islam. Knowing the direction that you are heading in as an individual and also as a community member. Knowing your position and your role to play in developing that strong community that each and every one of us are sitting here striving to do so today. The second of those ingredients, it was the importance and the role of the masjid or community center. The Prophet ﷺ, this was the first thing that he built upon his arrival to Al-Madinah, before he built his own home. It became a center that was welcoming, that was a place of education and enrichment. It was a place of community and a structure that not only provided them a place to be, a place to gather and join together, but provided for them structure in their daily lives. And we will conclude inshallah today with these ingredients of a successful community, with something that took place during the time of the Prophet ﷺ immediately after he built his masjid. Something unique to Islam, unprecedented in fact. When the Prophet ﷺ, he took his companions, those from the Muhajirun from Mecca and the Ansar from Al-Madinah, and joined them together in pairs as brothers and sisters. Joined them together in a bond of fraternity and sorority based upon one thing and one thing only, and that was their iman in Allah Azza wa Jal. When you look at the Prophet ﷺ and this example, you see the reality of it and the fruits that came from those relationships that were created from nothing other than Al-Islam. When the Prophet ﷺ would take a poor person and join him with a rich, wealthy person. Would take a weak companion and join him with a strong companion, so that they could help one another, striving, struggling, and obtaining their goals in this life and in the next. There was no other reason to establish this relationship and to found it other than upon the iman of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you look at the history of these people, the companions themselves, before Al-Islam, they were in a constant state of struggle with one another. Fighting, bickering, arguing, even to the point of warring, shedding the blood of their fellow tribesmen. This was the nature of their society. Jealousy, anger, differences of opinion. All of these things led to what happened during that time of bloodshed and treachery. The fact remains that when we look at our society and we look around us today, we can see the same thing happening. People are upset with one another, attacking one another, blaming one another, because this one is black and this one is white. This one speaks a different language. This one comes from a different country. They have a different culture. They have a different dress. They have a different type of hobbies and enjoyments. So there's no way for us to unite and become one society. The Prophet ﷺ, he came to change that. From that day onward, and this is highlighted in an ayah that you can find in Surah Al Imran, ayah number 103, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this verse, hold firmly, grab a hold of the rope of Allah Azza wa Jal. Al-Islam, faith, the Quran, a book of guidance. And do not be divided amongst yourselves. And remember the ni'mah, or the blessing of Allah Azza wa Jal, when you were once enemies, open enemies to one another, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, based upon this guidance, upon your faith and your iman, He joined your hearts together, and you became, as Allah says, فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. You became brothers. A bond that is deeper and stronger than blood. A relationship that will last and should weather all storms and all situations. And the reality of this brotherhood and sisterhood, it can be seen in the example of Abdurrahman ibn Auf and Sa'd ibn Rabi' al-Ansari. Abdurrahman ibn Auf was from Mecca, a muhajir. And Sa'd ibn Rabi' was an Ansari from Al-Madinah. It was reported on the authority of Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu قال قدم عبد الرحمن بن عوف فآخى بينه وبين سعد بن ربيع الأنصاري فعرض عليه أن يناصفه أهله وماله. Abd al-Rahman ibn Auf, upon the migration from Mecca to Al-Madinah, like many of the companions, they were forced to leave everything that they owned and possessed behind. Their businesses, their wealth, all of it, their networking, their professional development in their communities, all of it was abandoned for Allah Azza wa Jal. And upon the arrival of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, the Prophet ﷺ was waiting. And Anas ibn Malik reports that once he arrived to Al-Madinah, the Prophet ﷺ assigned him a brother from the Ansar. He assigned him Sa'd ibn Rabi' al-Ansari. And they became brothers from that moment on. They did not know one another. They were not from the same tribe, from the same culture, from the same background. One lived in Mecca, one lived in Medina. One had a culture, the other a different culture. And on the moment of arrival of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Rabi', he said, what do you think if I take half of everything I have? I empty my wallet, my bank account, my savings, the money under my mattress, the money in my safe behind the picture in the wall, everything that I have, half of my business, and I give it to you. Not only that, but he said, and I will share with you my family. In a gesture of love and brotherhood, he said, look at my wives and pick the one that you like the most, and I will give her to you, so long as she agrees to that, of course. The gesture that he was willing to offer, the sacrifice that he was willing to stand up and do for his new brother, who he did not know. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, of course, saw this gesture and responded in a manner which was equivalent to it, and he said, Barakallahu laka fi malika wa ahlika. May Allah bless you. May Allah give you extra benefit and blessings in your wealth and your family. Dullani ala suq. Show me where the market is, and I will handle it myself. The Prophet ﷺ reported that later on, A short period of time had passed from this moment, this relationship that was created, and he found that Abdurrahman ibn Auf radiallahu anhu had become a successful businessman. He had become wealthy. The Prophet ﷺ said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "My business is running smoothly, and I am married now. And I married a woman from the Ansar, the people of Medina, outside of my culture, outside of my tribe, outside of my home, a foreigner to me. But because of our relationship, our bonds, our community, we are able to get past all of those differences." And this was the example of all of the companions. The Prophet ﷺ, he joined all of them together. Salman al-Farisi and Abu Darda, radiyallahu anhuma. Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah and Abu Talha, radiyallahu anhum jami'an. The Prophet ﷺ created this. And this relationship, it was crucial in establishing a community. It was essential, an ingredient that without it, the food would be bitter and tasteless. The fruits would not be ripe and ready to eat. This was a bond that would fortify the community and strengthen the believers to becoming one unit. As the Prophet ﷺ demonstrated in an authentic narration, "Al-Muslimu lil-Muslim kal-bunyan, yashuddu ba'dahum ba'da, wa shabbaka bayna asabi'ah." He said that the Muslim to the Muslim, they're like a building. They strengthen one another, and he clasped his fingers together, demonstrating our relationship with one another. We are tight, we are close, we are strong as a unit, and weak when we are spreaded and divided. The Prophet ﷺ, he showed us that this relationship was essential to our survival. Not only that, but for us to thrive as a society. And this relationship was one of support and compassion. One of support, compassion, and kindness. And in return, the Prophet ﷺ said that support, kindness, and compassion would be shown to you in return by Allah Azza wa Jal. عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: المسلم أخو المسلم لا يظلمه ولا يسلمه ومن كان في حاجة أخيه كان الله في حاجته ومن فرج عن مسلم كربة فرج الله عنه كربة من كربات يوم القيامة ومن ستر مسلما ستره الله يوم القيامة. The Prophet ﷺ, defining for us the relationship and the nature of our bond together, he said that the Muslim is the brother of the other Muslim or sister. Whoever, they do not oppress one another and they do not give one another away. Whoever is seeing to the needs of their brother or sister in Islam, then Allah Azza wa Jal will see to their needs. Whoever removes a difficulty in the path of their brother or sister in Islam, then Allah Azza wa Jal will remove a difficulty from the many difficulties on Yawm al-Qiyamah. He will remove it from your path. And whoever conceals the faults and mistakes of their fellow Muslim brother, regardless of the nature of those faults and sins, Allah Azza wa Jal will conceal your faults on Yawm al-Qiyamah. What a great encouragement. What a great reward for us if we only act upon those words. The reality, brothers and sisters, is that this relationship in developing a community, it is not an easy task. It is not one of ease. We are human beings. We are not perfect. We are easily angered. We become jealous at times. We become upset. Sometimes we become vindictive and evil, acting to our brothers and sisters for whatever reason, justified or not. The fact remains, Allah says, وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا, that the human being is created in a state of weakness, that we have to deal with our soul and its desires. the weakness that is inherent in us as a human being. And for that reason, the Prophet ﷺ left us with a golden principle. He said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. You do not truly believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. On the line is your akhirah. لا يؤمن أحدكم. You do not believe. Your faith, your iman is not full. It is not complete. There is some deficiency in it if you are acting in a manner other than this hadith is telling you. That you love for your brother what you love for yourself. You love to be successful. At the same time, you love for your brother to be successful. So you do not hinder him in that success. You love for him to have a nice, comfortable life. So you're not standing in his way to attain that happiness. You are ready to sacrifice whatever it takes to see to this in the lives of your community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has demonstrated this to us in a beautiful statement in Surah Al-Hashr. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا وَيُؤْثَرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خِصَاصَةٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and those who have established homes and have accepted the iman, they have accepted Islam as their faith, they love those who are migrating to them. They love those who are coming to them, and you will not find in their hearts any jealousy for what they have been given. And they are ready to sacrifice and prefer their brothers over themselves. They prefer their brothers over themselves. And we look back to the story of Abdurrahman ibn Auf and Sa'd ibn Rabi', and we see that indeed this was the case, and this was the story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was highlighting for us. The Muhajirun, they were given great honor by Allah Azza wa Jal and preferred over the Ansar, the people of Medina, simply because they were with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the first day. They had to endure the struggles, the stress and the strain on themselves and their families while the Ansar were away in Medina, unaware of the situation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told us in the Quran that they are preferable, they are more virtuous than the Muhajirun. But the Muhajirun did not display any jealousy. They were not upset about this, but they were ready to make the ultimate sacrifice for their brothers in Al-Islam. So I say this as a reminder to you, and I will remind you of an important point. That this relationship that we are developing, it is something that requires maintenance and work. Just like your relationships with your husbands and wives, with your sons and your daughters, with your neighbors and your friends. You cannot simply just say, I'm your friend, I'm your brother, and then not act upon it. But it has to be expressed. It has to be shown. The Prophet ﷺ indicated in an authentic hadith this very thing. إِذَا أَحَبَّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَخَاهُ فَلْيُخْبِرْهُ أَنَّهُ يُحِبُّهُ. If one of you loves your brother or your sister in Islam, then inform them of your love. Not simply by saying it, but by acting upon it. By showing them this love that you have and making that sacrifice for them. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. Brothers and sisters, let us from this very moment begin to rekindle this bond, to rejoin our relationships, to mend fences, and to overlook faults and forgive one another. Because I know, without a doubt, that in this very room, sitting in this room today, if not all of you, then a large portion of you are going through a strained relationship. Whether it's with your wife, your friend, your children, your neighbor, a member of the community, for something that happened, whatever it was. something has caused you to become upset and angry with your fellow brother or sister in al-Islam. And I will remind you that the Prophet ﷺ, he says, لا يحل لامرئ مسلم أن يحجر أخاه فوق ثلاث. It is not permissible for a Muslim to abandon their brother or sister Muslim for more than 3 days. يلتقيان فيعرض هذا ويعرض هذا وخيرهما الذي يبدأ بالسلام. When they meet, this one turns away from that, and that one turns away from this, and the best of those who begin by saying Assalamu alaikum and rejoining this relationship, striving to reconnect with their brother or sister. Now there are times, and this is the nature of our world and existence, when we find situations that are not reconcilable, things that have happened that cannot be fixed immediately. There will need a period of time for that to be forgiven and forgotten. And for that reason, and this is one of the most difficult things to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, سَبْعَةٌ يُظِلُّهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظِلِّهِ يَوْمَ لَا ظِلَّ إِلَّا ظِلُّهُ. There are 7, and I mentioned this hadith previously, that will be shaded by Allah Azza wa Jal on a day when there will be no shade except for His shade subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He mentions رَجُلَانِ تَحَابَّا فِي اللَّهِ اجْتَمَعَ عَلَيْهِ وَتَفَرَّقَ عَلَيْهِ. 2 people that they love each other for the sake of Allah. They have come together for that sake, and they are ready to part for that sake. If you are in a situation where you cannot reconcile your differences, then you are to forgive one another, and perhaps it's better that there is a parting and a time period for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, so that things do not become excessive and create more trouble. Brothers and sisters, I say this and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless each and every one of us, to strengthen our communities, to give us this bond of brotherhood as was exemplified in the lives of the companions. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa aqimis salah.